Hi everyone, welcome to our Think PPC exchange today. The topic is Taming the Beast ad testing for large accounts. I'm glad so many of you could join us here. It is a co-hosted venture with me. I'm Sam Owen, I'm an account manager here at Hannapin, and you can tweet me at any time on Twitter at SamOwenPPC. I am joined by one of the best known PPCers out there, Brad Geddes. He is an author, speaker, marketing consultant, and founder of Certified Knowledge, and knows pretty much everything there is to know about AdWords, even if he's probably too modest to say so himself. And if you want to get in touch with Brad, you can reach him at BG Theory. Our topic today is Taming the Beast large account ad testing. So we're hoping that you guys are going to be able to pick Brad's brains along with me, send in any questions you have to us as we go along. You can reach us on Twitter, or you can send in the questions along the GoToMeeting question box on the side there. And like I said, if you do want to tweet to us, it's #ThinkPPC for your Twitter questions, and we'll try and get around to as many of those as possible at the end of the webinar today. So we're going to start with a live poll question, and I think this is a good time to bring you in, Brad. So we'll ask all you guys out there just to get a feel for things, how long you've been in PPC. So Brad, how long have you been doing it for?
Almost 15 years. So since the early days of GoTo.com, which doesn't even exist anymore.
So probably the longest person out there, I think. And if we do have anyone who's been doing PPC for longer than 15 years, feel free to drop us a comment, but I think it's probably unlikely. I myself have been doing it for just over 4 years now, so I end up in the third group here. And it looks like from our poll results, it's pretty evenly split. So the biggest group's 1 to 3 years, but then 5+ years we have more than a quarter of you too. So a lot of PPC experts in the house, which is great. We also have a second poll question, so we're just kind of interested, and this could hopefully help us answer some of your questions, is just how you manage your account. So for me, I'm an account manager in Hannapin, and I pretty much work in the weeds with accounts all the time and manage them myself for clients. Brad, how about you? How much time do you actually spend in AdWords these days?
I have a few accounts I manage myself, and I also work with some in-house teams and agencies I'm kind of like a part of a team that manages it. So I'm actually 1 and 2.
Awesome. Do we get results there? So it seems like most of you are either managing an account yourself or part of a team that manages it, which is great because you're the guys we really want to speak to today and talk through ad testing and try and get everything taken care of for you. So we're going to jump straight into the questions. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, Brad, and just kind of get your sense for is how we actually track large-scale ad testing in huge accounts. So do you have any particular strategies or tactics that you find work best?
So from a track standpoint, that's kind of almost question 2, right? Question 1 really is how do you deploy it? And so in that case, I'll often start with looking the segmentation of the ads, right? The brand versus the non-brand versus brands that aren't yours you advertise for, and then the goals, whether it's e-commerce, newsletter subscriptions, so forth. And so I'll have like a bucket of segments, and I want to test each segment individually to see how ads do within each segment. And I will definitely use templated ads, but templated for this segment. And so we have I'm not going to talk about all my tools all day long here, but I have one tool actually at Certified Knowledge that lets you do both ad group level variables and campaign level variables, so you can write templated ads that are still related to the ad group. And then once you've deployed that, and then you're getting your statistics. I usually tested how we're going to get to probably in a moment, which is with string testing, where how does this description line 1 work versus this second description line 1? How's this call to action working against that call to action? And do a lot of the metrics at the individual string level.
So I think one thing that we tend to do, and I don't know if this is the way you go too, Brad, but often, and I I sometimes wonder if this is just due to a limitation in testing on huge accounts, but we'll have maybe some very similar description line copy across the whole campaign, and then it will be our headlines that get kind of tweaked to reflect ad group specific. So normally we'll be testing like 3 or 4 different messages that go in the description line. So maybe one's like price focused and one is focused on like a certain benefit of the product. And then we'll try and build those into pretty much every ad group across a campaign, and then we'll pull all the data and pivot it and see which one works best. How do you feel about doing it that way? Do you tend to change up your description lines more than that, or are you more of a headline person too?
Nope. So the headlines are related to the ads, maybe the description lines, right? If I've got, let's say it's an account that does a lot of brand advertising. In fact, I'll use an example I just said recently where it was tires. And so every single tire manufacturer has their own specific tagline they use. And so then what I would do is the ad is related to the ad group, the headline, and write 2 or 3 different headlines. Then the description line one of them would be the company tagline. And then a couple others would be either benefit statements or features for that particular tire type. And so these were obviously broken down into, all-weather tires versus snow tires, etc. And then your description line 2s are often calls to action. So let's make 3 description line 2s across the entire campaign, regardless of which ad group it's for. And then, like you said, we would combine the data, pivot it, and then see for each line which did best. So very similar. I find if I just take even if it's just an hour to determine my buckets initially of the ads testing, and then find some difference between the ad groups which I can easily insert into the ads. So for tires, it's what are they, radials or whatever, and that goes for an industry. Then you've got even some description line ones that are tailored to the ad group, and so then when I run metrics, what I can say is, does tailoring the description line 1 matter or does it not matter? Because if it doesn't matter, great. This makes string testing even simpler. If it does matter, then you've got a little bit more work and some of the ad tweaks you're making over your testing methodologies.
So just for the benefit of everyone out there, Brad, when you say string testing, what exactly do you mean by that?
That means I've got 2 different description line 2s. One may be, call us now for free evaluation. Another one is, I can't think of course, we're writing ads and I've been on webinars all day and my brain's gone now. Another one is a different call to action, and I want to know, based upon these 2 calls to action, which one gets me the best conversion rate or CPA or CPI, whatever my metric is. And so it's taking an element of an ad, often description line 2 or description line 1, maybe using wildcards. So if, say, the description line 1 always includes a geography and the geographies are different, then you have a wildcard that you're kind of ignoring the geo part because you're testing a geo versus a non-geo ad, and then combining the data across every usage of that description line across all the ad groups, usually with a pivot table then to see which description line 2 is best. Did that explain it properly? Do you follow that?
Well, I followed it pretty well. If anyone still didn't, then send us a question, but I think you're pretty clear there. I had one quick follow-up on something you said. So you say you're testing description lines 1 and 2 separately. Do you tend to always have the description lines broken up, or do you ever let one sentence roll over both description lines?
When I start, so there's a big difference between your initial test and then your ongoing test. And my initial test, I almost always do them independently. Once I have understanding of top positions, if I have ads that are consistently in top position, I might try one long description line. But when your ads are in top position, if you use that single description line 1, which ends in often that period exclamation point, whatnot, you get that 70-character headline, that headline that really stands out. And so where I used to do more long sentences, I find now I actually do less just because of the way Google shows that extended headline versus the previous ways when they didn't do it and you had that long sentence.
And from your data, do you find that long sentence generally outperforms click-through rate wise when you don't have it?
No, I find it usually the long sentence does worse because it's broken up, and so a user reads one line, then another line, and doesn't always connect them together, especially since most ads are written that way. And so if the ad is above the fold and that one sentence is written and is one full description line, then often that single sentence does do better. But if you split it up into parts in the headline for the above the premium ad spots and parts in the description line or on the side, I find that this sentence actually does a little worse in most cases. Do you find that, or do you find the opposite?
So we've found both. It's kind of strange, and also it's one of those things that's kind of trickier to know when it actually is being pulled up into the top position. So I guess you have to do
Yep.
some more complicated pivoting by, uh, segmenting by day and working out which position it's in and when it's in the top and when it isn't. And I guess then even then you don't know when Google's bringing it up into the headline or not.
Yep.
So it's kind of a tricky thing to test. I think I've seen cases where I prefer not having it pull up, so I prefer writing that longer first sentence, or that longer sentence over 2 description lines. If you have something really compelling that fits into those 35 characters, then that tends to work pretty well, being pulled into that top headline.
So when you write full sentences, do you use sentence case or title case?
Explain that to me, sorry.
Sentence case is where only the first word's capitalized and the rest are in lowercase, like a sentence would read in like a proper book. And title case is when the first letter of each word is capitalized.
So that's actually one of the things we standardly test. And I found that for high-value products, it tends to be better when you don't capitalize every product. And then for lower value things that you kind of trying to make your ad pop a bit more, it tends to work better where I capitalize that first letter. So it's a good question. We normally test it on, it's like one of our go-to ad copy tests. What have you seen with that?
I find it's often a demographic thing for me. So when it's an older demographic, I find sentence casing usually works best. The younger the demographic, the better title casing seems to work best. I often find in B2B sentence is better, B2C title is better. Now there's lots of exceptions, hence why we actually test, because I never will make a rule that says it's B2B. We always do sentence case, because as soon as I did that, the next account I launched would be wrong for that, right? So it's a test to do, but I've never found any test always leads to these certain better results.
Yeah, I think just testing it is always the way to go. And it's funny you say that about the older versus younger demographic, because typically the high-value products we've sold tend to be, or at least in the accounts I've worked in, have tended to be for that older demographic. So that's probably why my visual of the correlation is looking at high versus low value, but actually maybe it is that older-younger gap.
Yeah.
We're going to jump onto the next set of questions. So we probably covered a little bit of this already, but just looking at statistical significance. So when you're doing your tests, and this is kind of one question I actually had that's that someone else in the Hannafin team brought up, but if you have, for example, a test that's running campaign-wide on lots of ad groups, and when you pivot that data, your first ad is, your test 1, test A, whatever you want to call it, is the winner, but actually in some ad groups, test B is the winner statistically. Do you still force that test A across everything, or do you try and go down to that ad group level and pick a winner that way?
So I saw this question, I'm like, that's a great question. So to me, this depends on long tail testing versus head term testing. So for my top ad groups, I'm going to go to the ad group level. If I've got 10,000 long tail ad groups, I'm not going to go to the ad group level. I'm going to stop at the string level. And so what I will often do then is label the ad groups or the ads. This is long tail, this is important terms. And then when I run that pivot data, I will do a filter for these are long tail, it's fine. Yeah, you're right. Some of them it's not going to be the best ad for, but the amount of time it would take to determine for every single ad group, you'd never get through it. And then for my top ones, I'm going to go to the ad group level and pick which string really did do best.
I think that's pretty much how we do it too, as a standard. So we'll have one ad we know is the best overall in the account, and where we don't get enough data, and then if we do have an ad group where we know for sure that actually our losing ad and the overall was better, we'll still make that the winner for that particular ad group. So I'm glad that we do it the way you do, Brad, because that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, well, there's always what's possible versus how much time you can realistically do things in. So what's possible, right, is to handwrite every single ad for every single ad group, and you got 10,000 ad groups and 3 ads each. I'll see you in a year when you get to launch your account, right? And so this is where sometimes we just have to do what's best overall, and so we can keep improving.
And I guess that kind of comes on to our second question here then. So is there any way, do you have any tips and tricks to still keeping your ad at least semi-custom tailored on that large scale? Is it possible, or is that just too much of a time suck?
I think it is possible, right? So this is where I will see if an account has a easy way of doing data export. So like say you're e-commerce, right? Well, you've got a feed to work from. And so you can take that feed and say, all right, our product name is going to be the headline, and we've got an attribute that's color or an attribute that's a clothing type or whatnot. And so we can still write an ad that says shop for, insert from feed. If an account doesn't have like some nice export in their system, then I might use something like Xenu and crawl their entire website. And then that'll get me the meta keywords, the title tags, the description lines, and then maybe with some filtering, I can pull something into that for that large scale testing. So I do try to maintain some custom tailored ads, definitely, but sometimes the method you use will depend based upon the easy availability of data, and sometimes it also depends on how the site is structured. So like a couple weeks ago, I was building 2 e-commerce accounts. One e-commerce account, your size and color selection, they were both for apparel. Your color and size selection was at a category level, which seemed just absurd to me, that at the category levels, when you choose color sizes and then you drill down to like the actual shirt and pants after having chosen that. So in that case, you can't even use product level URLs for certain things. The other one had it more traditionally, where you've got your colors and sizes as attributes at the product level. So even how you'd build ads to those accounts depends on the eventual pages that you're sending the traffic to. And so if I can pull some consistent attribute, whether it's a feed, whether it's crawling the site itself, whether it's, in some cases they hire an intern and put together some information, then you can still maintain some level of custom ads. It's not going to be, perfect. And that's why I like to segment. Here's long tail. That's going to be the best we can do based upon easy, manipulation of templated data. And then we've got our top ones, and we'll get to a point where, hey, these are the top 20 or 50 or 100 ad groups. We just have to take the time to actually handwrite these. And if you keep those segments of super important and not quite as much, just best possible, then you can still do custom tailoring at one level and then true custom ads at another one.
So I have another question that kind of relates to statistical significance here, and that's I think something we all kind of wonder in PPC is just how many ads do you normally test at once? So let's say you've got a brand new account. How many ads would you have going live from the start across your ad groups?
I have a tendency to default to 3. I see some people do way more, some people only do 2. I find that I always have at least 3 ideas for different types of ads when I start. So I have this tendency to do 3 ads when I start, and it's not based upon any scientific data. It's based upon habits over years of 2 is not enough, but when you get to 4 and 5, you never get winners, and especially in smaller accounts. So 3 is just kind of my default, but for no true logic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of things in PPC are just born out of habit rather than necessarily logic. And then I guess another part of that question then, and this is something I always wonder, do you have a process by which you decide whether you're going to do like a completely brand new ad, or do you have, do you start with 3 brand new, separate, completely different ads, and then when you find a winner, then you work on well, is my display URL going to be better with, a slash product name at the end of it or not?
I have a tendency for my usually first 2, maybe 3 rounds of ad tests to do totally different types of things. And then once I've done 2 or 3 rounds, which means I've tested 6 to 9 ads, then I have a tendency to do more incremental changes, with the exception being if those keywords are have quality score issues of relevancy problems. Then I will do brand new ads, but that's a quality score fix as much as it is an ad testing fix.
I see. I think that makes sense. I mean, normally I find that if my click-through rates are really low, I'm much more inclined to go for that big home run change. And
Yep.
if things are pretty good, but I'm trying to, make some slow, steady progress, that's when I'll, maybe work out if the capitalized letters work better than non-capitalized, etc.
Yep. And this is where I also find that when I'm writing some of these ads, I will, I'm not going to watch every competitor for every terminology account. You just can't do it, right? But what I will do is Google's got that great feature, the auction insight feature, where you can see truly your top competitors by impressions and who's above you, who's below you for either a keyword or an ad group. And so I can look at the high value ad groups, know which ads I'm most likely competing against, so I can take a peek at their ads and say, okay, they're all using discounts, I'm not going to use a discount. Or they're all using sale prices, I'm going to just go for benefits. And so I will use that auction insights to determine competitors, to write something different than the competitors.
It's funny you mentioned competitors. So when I first started in my first couple of weeks in PPC, my old boss told me, if you're above a good competitor ad, copy it, at least in terms of not necessarily word for word, but copy the strength of their message. And if you're below them, try and find something new and exciting that's different.
That's not, you know what? It's not terrible advice, but if I'm above them, I want to keep above them. I don't want to copy and steal what they're doing well to maintain that. I want to make sure we really are leading everyone if I'm in that position. So I often will look to see what are they. If everyone's doing one thing, that I will often try something totally opposite, and maybe one ad that's similar and one ad that's completely opposite to see how that goes.
That'll probably be a pretty interesting test to try. I know I haven't tried it recently, so might be something worth doing. We'll jump ahead to our next set of questions. So one thing I really wanted to pick your brains on was just how you test image ads. So when you test them, is there anything specifically applies to the Google Display Network? Do you look at ad sizes, or do you look at colors? Is there anything in particular that becomes our new description line 1 and 2, for example?
So I test differently based upon how I'm doing them. So if I'm doing placement targeting, then, and I know the sites that the ads are going to be on, I'm going to do ad tests by size, because that's the ad slot I'm taking up. If I'm doing keyword or topic or even interest type targeting, then I'm going to test based upon themes. So what I'll do is I will name my ads the theme name dash the size. And so that way I can actually recombine the data just like in a pivot table for the theme name or the size to see how it works, because it's across a lot of different placements. Now if I find a placement that is got a lot of traffic that I'm going to make a managed placement, then I will look at what ads did best in that managed placement in the ad group where I'm creating the managed one. And so to me, it's not necessarily just about the theme and the size testing. It's about that in correlation with the type of targeting you're doing on display. And if I'm doing remarketing, I find that I always do better if I have at least 3 different image ad types, or maybe even 4. And that if I have an absolute best offer on remarketing and I delete the others, my overall ad group efficiency goes down. And I think it's because remarketing is getting a customer back that you lost previously in many cases. And so if you only have one, you've only got one offer to show them. But if you're rotating 2 or 3, 4 offers, what might not grab person 1 for offer 1 will grab person 2. And so I find with remarketing, I always keep multiple tests running and not always just tests. We're just making sure there's rotating offers where with placement targeting, you might have a winner. With keyword targeting or topic, you may have a winner. And so the targeting type determines a lot about how the tests are run for display. Do you do anything similar?
I was just going to ask, so I assume that you don't optimize for clicks then in your remarketing campaigns so you can evenly serve up those ads?
No, I rarely use optimize for clicks. I will generally use rotate evenly, or if I'm doing like for search, a lot of CPA stuff, I will do optimize for conversions with CPA bidding. But when I first start, I always do rotate evenly. And then after a couple rounds of tests, I might do optimize for conversions. But if it's like a publisher and they're making money on CPM, then for everything except remarketing, I will do optimize for CTR in that specific instance. But remarketing, I almost always use rotate.
So the reason I asked, the reason I put the image ads questions in, Brad, is because I tend to find that for a lot of my clients, the text ads are kind of my realm, and image ads come from their brand marketing team, and I pretty much just have to go with whatever they send me. So there's less testing that we do there a lot of the time.
And this is where, I mean, I love like 99 design tools. I am one of the few marketers who I don't even have Photoshop on my computer. That's how well I am at designing images, right? So I will use a tool and I'll download my competitors' images and I'll take a look. I'll find some ones I really like, and then I'll go to like a crowdsourced image system and say, hey, go make these. And that's why I like 99 Design, because you'll get 40 or 50, 60 contest people. Then you can pick your favorite 3 or 4 out of them and then go test them. So I often do that with images. I don't create them myself. It would look terrible if I did it myself.
Do you have a place you go for those crowdsourced images?
Usually 99 Designs.
Cool. I'll check it out.
You can put up a contest for like $150, $250. You'll get lots of submissions.
So moving on from image ads. So this is something I heard you speak about SMX last week, and I thought it was a great point you made, and something that we probably don't do enough of in terms of breaking down our kind of mobile desktop ads. So how do you deal with the differences between performance with those, and if there's any tricks or tips that you see as well with what tends to work better for desktop or mobile ads?
Yeah, so first off, there's the concept that Google, I don't think, has pushed enough, called effective device. And this is where your ads are showing regardless of your metrics, your settings. So if you only have 2 mobile preferred ads in an ad group and no desktops, your mobile preferred are actually shown on desktops. And so number one is assuming the campaign is on multiple devices, is I'll download the ad data, I will put it in a pivot table by effective device, and then I'll highlight any ad group that doesn't have at least 2, right? So essentially, this ad group only has 2 mobile ads, no desktops. This one has 2 desktops, no mobiles, or whatnot, to make sure I've got at least 2 of each, or sometimes 3 of each, in an ad group. That's really one. And then I'll run my metrics individual by device type. What often you see difference is things like Call Us works way better on a mobile device than on a computer, right? It's not a bad call to action on a computer. Get them to your site or use your call extension and have them call you, but it often is way more effective on a mobile device where, download a white paper. No one wants, unless they're really desperate, no one wants to download a white paper on a phone and try to read, a 30-page PDF on a phone. And so there are calls to action which I will find you way different by device type. But really that first step is making sure you're testing each device independently.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because after I saw that presentation, I went away and looked at one of my clients' accounts, and we had a load of ads that had been losing that had Call Us Now or something as the call to action, and almost every single time they were winning in the mobile click-through rate. So I got to spin out a load of new mobile preferred ads on the back of that strategy. So that was a good tip. The other question here is obviously just where you think tablet fits in here. So do we just ignore it until Google lets us have tablet-specific ads and destination URLs?
Unfortunately, right? Because even if you knew this ad was best for tablet, you can't do anything about it. So and I hate to do this, but now I combine tablet with desktops, pick my winners, right? And if I could segment tablets and write tablet-specific ads, I wouldn't do that. But since if I have a tablet winner, I can't do anything, it doesn't matter. Now, this is where Bing is different than Google, though. Because Bing, you can do this, so you can test desktops, tablets, and mobiles independently on Bing if you do see differences, where Google, you can't. And so when you get into Bing testing, Bing has a lot more options than Google does now.
So we have a name for this when we pull our pivot table, it's Desklet, and that's our combined tablet desktop.
I like that, Desklet. Okay.
So just quickly looking at brand ads then, because obviously you kind of spoke earlier about the difference between brand and non-branded ads. Do you have like a strategy difference when you do these? I know I tend to put the name of the company, for example, or like their tagline becomes more important when I have a branded ad. But have you seen this across your many accounts of testing, or is there anything else that you think is?
Yeah. So to me, there's two types of branded ads. You have Oh, actually, there's three types. You have your company name, which is brand one. You have products that are exclusive to your company, but they're not necessarily your brand name. So like Kindle for Amazon, that would be brand two. And then you have brands you sell that aren't yours. And so first off, to me, there's three buckets of branded ads. And so for the branded ads that really are your company, like your company name, things like official site, trademark symbols, great for that. I find that really does help the brand. The other thing I'll try to keep apprised of, and this sometimes gets into communication issues with companies, is what are the current TV ads or radio ads or print ads they're running, because if they're going to push a new message in television, then you often, and television drives a lot of search volume, then you want to use that same ad in your branded ad online in paid search. So I will try to, I hate the word synergy, it's so overused in paid search or marketing right now, but really it's how you connect that TV or radio or print ad to paid search, because they're often the driver of the search query. So if they've got new taglines, those are great. But yeah, the company name is fine for that. But the company name is not good for necessarily your products that you own, but aren't really your company name. And so that's kind of the things that I think of when trying to do the branded-based ads.
So have you ever tried just using your non-branded messaging? So just really pushing like that kind of salesy messaging on a branded keyword. Does that work worse generally, or does it work well?
Well, what I often do for brand queries is, and this kind of depends on the type of account, right? If you're Geico, your goal is always to get an insurance lead, and that's it. So in that case, salesy message, because you're a direct response company off of paid search. But let's say your company offers multiple services. So the brand ad is an opportunity to show what's new in the company. And so with your brand query, you should rank number one organically. In fact, if you're not, you have a poor brand name and you need to fix that anyway. But so what I often look at is, what does this company wish they had more of? Newsletter subscribers, people who knew about their new products, and instead of sending that traffic to the homepage, we'll do a what's new page, or subscribe to our newsletter, or follow us on Google Plus or Facebook or something, and try to pull unique engagement from the user beyond just going as a navigational query to the homepage to get more value. So then the brand ad often might be official site or registered trademark or whatnot with the company name, but then it will be things like, take advantage of our special offers. Goes to a newsletter page or sale page or something. And so the brand traffic I find is often way undervalued, just sending to a homepage for sites with many offers. For sites with single offers, then some of your offer page is fine. But I do try to get more out of some of those branded clicks than a straight navigational query.
Perfect. We're going to run through, this is our last question that we have planned, and we're getting a ton of questions come through. So we're going to try and speed things up, and we'll try and get to all your questions and quick fire them. So just this one final question I had for you, Brad, was um, sometimes you can be managing an account for a long time. Do you have a way to keep track to make sure you're not like, retesting something from last year that you forgot you tested?
So there's actually a few ways I do this, right? So there are times that we have so many ideas for ads, we will make a spreadsheet of these are the ideas we're going to test in order, and that might take us a year to get through. In that case, not a problem. Number two, I will keep a spreadsheet of the main things we've tested. It may just be we've tested price and discounts and this and that, right? Especially with string testing, and then I can glance through our history of what we've done. Thirdly, everyone has all their AdWords stuff right there, and so I'll just search to see have I used this word before, done this test before within AdWords. It's also when I especially for handwriting top value items, I'll keep those losers visible so I can make sure I haven't used it or maybe it was used last year, but it's been a long time and the market's changed a bit. Maybe we should try an old ad again. There are times old losers can become new winners if the market conditions change. But really, I don't find there's a perfect solution for this, but usually, a spreadsheet of here's the main things we've tested, here's the the string lines we were using, or maybe with wildcards. Take a look at it. Even over a year, you're not going to have more than 50 different types of tests you've run, and then go from there. But I don't find there's a great system for this. But the big problem usually comes in when an account transitions from one analyst to another within an agency or in-house, is not having that history. And so if you just keep simple spreadsheet, shared document, whatnot, that has that, then you have less redundancy in your ad tests.
Sure, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we tend to just use a Google Doc to keep track of most of that stuff, so that multiple account managers can check on it without having to send it to each other.
Yep.
Cool. So this is our final poll question for you guys out there before we get round to the Q&A. So if you guys are interested in any help with your PPC accounts or management, just answer our poll here today and we'll get back in touch with you. So if you're interested in any PPC management, Hannafin can handle the day-to-day management of your PPC account. Let us know. If you're just interested in account audit, we can do that, review your account. We can look at your ad testing strategy, for example. If you're interested in a PPC retainer, so that's just hiring us for a specific number of hours, or if you're interested in a free solutions blueprint, and I kind of recommend these to everyone who wants someone just to do it's a mini audit, I guess, of your account and suggest 2 or 3 things you could do that are really going to help out. These are free; they're no obligation, so you could sign up for one, and you're not committing to being harassed by us or anything. It's just something that's potentially helpful, and then hopefully we could work together at some point, but if not, no worries. So that's our final poll question, and then hopefully we can jump right now, and now I've done my sales pitchy part, we can jump right now into the Q&A, which you've all been kind of patiently waiting for. So this is a really important question, Brad. What's your key metric to look for when testing ads, click-through rate or conversion rate?
So this goes back to the account goals. So if it's a publisher, they often just want CTR. If it's a company focused on conversion activities, I use conversion per impression, or profit per impression if I can get that. Most companies don't actually know their true profit data to be able to do profit by impression testing. But the issue comes in if you've got a high click-through rate and a low conversion rate. So lots of clicks, but not many conversions from those clicks. Is that better or worse than a low click-through rate but a high conversion rate? So not many clicks, but those who do actually convert. There's no way to answer that question. But if you say for every 100 impressions I get 1.5 conversions with this ad. For every 100 impressions, I get 0.63 conversions with this ad. Now you've taken it all the way to the impression level, which is the ad serving, and can pick your winner. So I default to CPI, conversion per impression, when conversions are the main metric for the account.
And I think I do something similar. So we really like to use, it's the same metric, we just call it something different. We call it impressions until conversion, IUC. And I like that a lot, but I read something pretty compelling recently on a blog that suggested that that really just to focus on click-through rate, because obviously long-term that's going to help quality scores and CPCs, and if you have a competitor out there focusing on their click-through rate, they're going to be able to
See,
long-term at least kind of beat you out in the AdWords zone.
that was written by someone who's never done B2B marketing. Because with B2B marketing, your goal is to segment out consumers searching for the same thing to only get your ads shown to businesses. And so, with B2B, if you have a really high click-through rate, you have an incredible amount of unqualified clicks, unless it's super, super specific terms. But if you're, a B2B accounting company, you're still going to advertise on some accounting keywords, but they're mostly B2C searches. So focusing on click-through rate there is going to be a huge waste of money. I know companies who do that, and it's their conversion rates are very consistent, regardless of the ad itself. And in that case, it makes sense. Those are usually high conversion B2C companies that often don't have a financial conversion. It's like an email conversion or something that can be much higher.
How about this one then? Do you usually rotate your ads indefinitely, or do you use that 90-day feature, or do you have a particular rotation preference?
If I'm testing, I almost always use rotate indefinitely. If I am really focused on conversions for a while, then I might use optimize for conversions. It works really well with CPA bidding, but it doesn't work quite so well with testing. So if my focus is management but not necessarily testing, I'll use optimize for conversions. If my focus is testing, I'll use rotate indefinitely. But I find in many, many cases my best ad is not still my highest click-through rate ad, so I will rarely use the rotate for 90 days, because you never know when 90 days is up. There's no warning that says, hey, this ad's now optimized for CTR. And because there's no notice there, you never know which rotation method anyone ad group is on.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I wish there was a 90-day warning. You could probably set one up somehow, but that would be pretty useful. So here's the next question. Do you have any particular ad copy rules for when a company rebrands? So they change the name of their brand from one thing to another. Do you think that's time to go back to the board with ad testing, or do you think the messaging tends to work whatever your brand is?
No, that's going to go back to the board with ad testing. I mean, the best transition from one brand to the other, in my opinion, ever was 7-8 years ago when Singular became AT&T. I think it was Singular at AT&T, and their ads were, AT&T is becoming Singular. Singular is becoming AT&T, and their brand ads listed that out very well. They even did on some generic things. Did that? They ran some TV commercials for it, and it was really well done. Where last year Brinks Home Security became a different company, and I don't remember the new name of the company, but most people do not know this happened. They didn't have a strategy for, well, at least they might have had a strategy, but it didn't seem to work for that name transition. And so I think it's very important to lay out the time frame of the transition, how the ads are going to be tested, what they're going to say to ensure that people who already know your brand know this, who are searching for you, people who don't always know it or know who you are but not real well. Display ads are great for that too, in going through that transition phase.
All right, so let's try and switch up, and we're going to try and do a quick fire set of questions here because we had so many, Brad. So maybe if you can just give your 1 or 2 sentence answers to the next few questions, and we'll see how many of these we can get through.
Okay.
That work for you?
Let's go.
Do you have any suggestions on PPC ad split testing tools?
Adanalysis, it's in beta. It's my tool. If you really want to take a look at it, let me know.
What would be a good benchmark for ad testing? So do we need 1,000 impressions? Is there a certain number of clicks? Is there a certain number of days?
I usually minimum of 1 week. I prefer a month or actually 3 sales cycles if you can get it. From a click standpoint, at least 20 to 50. I prefer a couple hundred. and at least 7 to 15 conversions. There's a lot more it depends, but we're doing these rapid fire.
How about ad testing for RLSA? So that's something we hadn't brought up yet. So that's remarketing for search ads. Is there anything different we need to do with those?
That is a great question. I have not done enough ad testing on those to have a great answer yet.
Perfect. And we haven't either, so I'm kind of eagerly waiting to hear what we find with RLSA. I think pushing different messaging is something I'm really intrigued to try to see if it, bringing people back to upsell to them. I'm also kind of intrigued at maybe just, something pushing the exact same message works the same. So we'll see, but let us know if you find anything out, Brad.
Yeah, my first hypothesis are really going to be if I've got 3 different offers for remarketing, what happens if I use those both on display and on search to see how those offers kind of pop back up, but I don't really know yet.
Someone's asked, just for clarification, I thought I heard Brad say he organizes image ad groups by size or theme. So does he test 2 or 3 different kinds of creative per ad group, or do you have those broken out into different ad groups?
I always segment my display ad groups. Image are one ad group, text is another one, but the reason is more bidding based than it is testing based. So with display, you can be, I'm going to take like 6 sentences here. With display, you can be in a position 3 but have a text ad shown. You can't have an image ad shown unless you're in position 1, so you often have to bid 10 to 15% higher for image ads. So while I do test by themes and by sizes, sizes are for managed placements. Themes are for keywords, topics, interest targeting. I will still split them by ad groups for bidding purposes.
And I tend to divide up image and text, but that's probably as far as I go with it, and then try and work out from there within the ad group. Do you use ad labels at all to keep track of these tests? So that's something that's probably a pretty good idea, right?
Yes. Brand, non-brand, generic brand, things you sell. Then if you multiple transaction types, so this is e-commerce, this is newsletter, this is engagement metric, and in that way I will often use multiple labels, head terms, long tail terms, and then when I combine the data in pivot tables, I will segment by a label or 2 labels so I know exactly the type of ads I'm looking at, the metrics I need, and I can often keep my buckets, which we talked about at the very beginning of the show, segment. I use labels to do that. Love labels, which they were in the API.
It'd be nice if we could get more of them in editor too.
Mm-hmm.
So so this is a good question, and I think it's one quite a lot of people have asked me recently, but do you see noise running multiple tests at the same time? So for example, someone's asking if they're doing the string test with their ads, and they're maybe also running like bid tests, and then also at the same time maybe an A/B landing page test. Is there any problem with that, or does the A/B nature kind of cancel that out?
In a case like that, so I would never run an ad test, a bid test, and a landing page test simultaneously. Too many variables, something's probably going to get messed up. I will run 2 ad tests and 2 landing page tests, basically 4 combinations at once. So you're essentially running 4 ads to 2 landing pages to see which combination does best. Or I will run bid tests independently. But once you pass, 2 or 3 variables you're testing at once, it's kind of like multivariate testing. You know this combination is a winner, but you have no idea why, so you get no insights from your own test. And that's something you want to avoid.
And finally, this is our last quickfire question. So how important is it to actually separate out your mobile preferred ads?
Super important. So there's the lazy approach and there's the perfect approach, right? The perfect approach is you start with 3 mobile, 3 desktop ads. You test them all independently. You keep them completely separate. That doubles the amount of ads you're testing. So if it's the lazy man approach is you start with 3 ads, you test, you do your segments by devices, you pick your winners. And then you switch one to mobile preferred, so keep the one all, and then you write your new ads. The downside of that is you just hit the edit button to make it mobile preferred, so you reset your stats. Some things don't come up quite as well. So while the lazy method is much faster in testing, sometimes you kind of shoot yourself in the foot because, as Google, we know, is temperamental and things don't happen how you predict they would.
I think that's the one lesson I took away from you last week, and it seems to be really helping my account so far this week in terms of my mobile traffic. So I definitely recommend everyone out there listen to Brad's advice. That's actually the last question we had. So if you have any more questions, you can either ask for that free solutions blueprint I mentioned earlier. You can tweet us at ThinkPPC as our hashtag, or you can even directly contact marketing@hennepinmarketing.com. I want to just take a quick second to thank Brad for being with us on the webinar today, and look forward to seeing you guys next week on our next webinar. And that's it. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you, Sam.